by some, we mean Matt Barnes.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
we here with big dog Stat Jack, one and only Steven Jackson, NBA champion, 16-year NBA vet. Y'all know who it is. He needs no introduction. But, Sel, you up first.
Yeah.
Has the Chris Paul criticism gone too far?
No, I don't think it's gone too far. Let's just be real about this. Outside of Patrick Beverley, who assaulted Chris Paul last year in the playoffs after the game was over, basically, who else is talking big trash about Chris Paul? Everyone else seems like they're keeping it in a greater perspective than Pat Beverley. So I understand why Pat Beverley going there. He mad that Chris Paul's the reason he ain't in Houston from hello. So then all of that is coming up in smoke because, hey, we got beef. So when I get a microphone, what's coming out? Words, spit, and beef. That's all we get for Pat Beverley. Now, Matt Barnes is correcting him. We're going to have a conversation about Matt Barnes' correction right there because I take a little issue with that, but let me get my first lap off. Y'all need to respect Chris Paul for who Chris Paul is. Acho, yesterday, you had some criticism of Chris Paul, but really it was just facts that weren't so flattering. It was Chris Paul giving up, 5 different 2-0 series leads in his postseason career? That's not flattering. So let me flatter CP3. Y'all got to remember that everywhere Chris Paul goes, he makes that situation better. Y'all remember New Orleans? Yeah, in the first year, plus 20 in the win column. Remember the Clippers? Yeah, without CP3, we weren't making the playoffs. We get CP3 plus 11 and the playoffs. Houston Rockets, they were already winning, but they went from 55 wins to 65 wins in the Western Conference Finals. They weren't doing that before Chris Paul. Let's talk about OKC. We already know what he did there. And the Phoenix Suns go from a 34-win team to being in the finals. So all I want to do is keep it in greater perspective, which I think everyone has done, except one dude, the dude that got beef with him, the dude that assaulted him, Patrick Beverley.
I like that take. Criticism ain't gone too far to me, Stat. It ain't gone too far to me, Sel. If we being real, everybody said the same thing. Pat Bev just added a little too much color to his commentary. We talk about it. Matt Barnes went on air yesterday and said Chris Paul had a terrible game.
Yeah.
Chris Paul would admit he had a terrible game. So what's the difference if I come out and say Chris Paul had a terrible game? Now, Pat Bev just added too much color, saying he's a cone. Y'all know cones, they don't move when you make them move around them. But he's really just using an analogy. Now, it wasn't the most flattering analogy, but it's an analogy nonetheless. We have not gone too far. We got to call CP3 exactly what and who CP3 is. One of the best point guards of all time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when the going gets tough and the further the playoffs go, Chris Paul gets worse and worse and worse. I would equate Chris Paul to fool's gold. Fool's gold. Y'all know pie, right? Fool's gold, it looks like gold, and it is still an element. You're going to find it on a periodic table. Give us some of its respect.
Fool's gold?
Fool's gold, because right when you think it's gold, you're going to get fooled. Think about Chris Paul. Chris Paul led the Phoenix Suns through the first round, led the Phoenix Suns to the second round, but when the Suns needed Chris Paul to be his best, he was his worst. Y'all remember he had 7 turnovers, what was it, Game 3? Game 4, he ends up with 5 fouls in about 3.5 quarters. And then all of a sudden in Game 7, when we need you most, you give us 10 points. That's why I say fool's gold. Don't get it twisted. Chris Paul is still a beast. But when they really need him most, that's when he gives you the least. I'm going to give it to you like this, Stack, and then it's all you, big dog. I told Slick Rick Bucher this yesterday. When the reason you are good is no longer good, then it's all bad. Chris Paul is the reason the Phoenix Suns are good. I can say that. Accept that compliment, accept that truth. But when Chris Paul is no longer good, which typically happens as the playoffs we're on, then the Phoenix Suns are bad. I don't think the beef has gone too far. I don't think the comments have gone too far.
Nobody's above criticism. Nobody. Yeah. You don't play well, you get criticized. That's the business we in. I mean, I had Bill Walton say, I took a shot in the playoffs and I was playing well. I took one shot that I missed. He said, what a horrible shot by a horrible human being. So people gonna say what they want to say, bro. Right? You know what I'm saying? And I was doing Bill, and I would bust Bill Walton ass any day. Let me tell you that. But anyway, everybody's a part of it. Everybody has to deal with criticism. Chris Paul. Everybody's been putting Chris Paul on his pedestal, saying we want Chris Paul to win. We want Chris Paul to win the championship. Everybody's rooting for Chris Paul, but he didn't play well. So since he didn't play well, he deserves the criticism, just like they would criticize anybody else that didn't play well and didn't show up in the Game 7. Now, Pat Beverley, if you know anything about basketball, y'all, we all know Pat Beverley. He does a great job of using his mouth to take people out of his game. But when it comes down to offensive skills, when it comes down to be a skilled player, Patrick Beverley is very limited. His game is very limited. I like Patrick Beverley because I would want him on my team because he plays hard, he competes. But when it comes to skill, him and Chris Paul are two different levels. But Pat Beverley has the right to speak his opinion. He's an NBA player as well. But nobody took that serious from Pat Beverley. Nobody did.
Well, Matt Barnes did take it seriously, and I respect Matt Barnes to the fullest. However, you just brought it up. Now, we got to know who we're talking about. Know your personnel, as they say in sports. You're talking about Patrick Beverley. He agitates on the court. He's going to agitate off the court. That's how he gets down. That's in his DNA. But my greater take about all of this is what Matt Barnes did, and I want to hear what you guys really have to say about it. What is the license that a player has to talk about another player? Because what I inferred from what Matt Barnes said is the fact that since Pat Beverley is a role player, he can't talk about Chris Paul. Since Matt Barnes was a role player, as he says, self-professed, that there's a limit to who you can criticize. Well, I don't get down like that. You know why? Because if that's the case, then Chris Paul can't never criticize Shaq, right? Or where we stop at? As good as you are, so Jordan could talk about everybody. LeBron could talk about everybody except maybe Jordan. And then everybody just get in line in terms of who you could talk down to. I didn't like that part from Matt Barnes because, being real, my best coaches never played football at the highest level. But they were able to criticize me. They were able to teach me. They were able to say things that were warranted. And if we're going to just take it all the way, fans should never, ever say anything to a player because they never played pro. And then lesser players should never say anything to a greater player because you weren't as good as him. I've learned this from my little coaching experience I've had this offseason. I coach 6-year-olds, but it's still coaching. It ain't about what you do because I played pro ball for a decade. It ain't about me doing that. It's about what I could get them to do as a coach. And that's a completely different skill set. Just like if you're criticizing someone as a media analyst. That's a different skill set compared to how good you were on the basketball court. That was my only issue I took with Matt when he was talking about it.
Well, being real, I don't think no one should have a problem with the message of what's being delivered in regards to Chris Paul. What people have a problem with is the messenger.
Yeah.
If somebody different would have said the same remarks about Chris Paul, I don't think we would have taken issue with it. But because it's Pat Bev, and Pat Bev is offensively limited, and Pat Bev is a role player, and Pat Bev isn't on the same level of Chris Paul, now you shouldn't be allowed to talk, Pat Bev. Think about it. Monty Williams, coach for the Suns, he said, I'm not going to acknowledge the comments because they're on two different levels. That don't mean the comment can't be true.
Thank you.
That don't mean the comment can't be worthy of acknowledging. It just means that Chris Paul's a better player than Pat Beverley. Pat Beverley would agree with that. But that don't mean Pat Beverley is not right in what he's saying about Chris Paul. Stack, I also think of it like you hit a great point, man. Everybody, man, I hope Chris Paul gets one. Chris Paul deserves to get one. Deserves? Yo, sports is not a world of deserving. Sports is a world of earning. If you want a chip, you better go earn a chip. Don't nobody deserve one just because they waited in line. And sports is not about waiting in line with a ticket like you at the DMV waiting for them to call your number so you can renew your driver's license. Sports is about going out and getting it. Yep. So if you want it, you got to go get it. And truth of the matter is, Chris Paul did not go out and get it. Chris Paul is one of the most likable human beings off the basketball court. Incredible commercials. I'm sure he's making a ton for him and his family. But on the basketball court, when it matters, he don't go out and get it. So I think we have to call it exactly what it is. So I'm not mad at it, and I don't think it's gone far.
I'm not mad at Matt or Patrick Beverley. I'm not mad at Patrick Beverley because he is the NBA player. He's on ESPN. They're asking for his opinion. He's getting paid for it, so he should give his opinion. Yeah. But I understand what Matt was saying too, Sal. As a basketball player, when we speak on players, before we get to criticizing, we got to live in reality somewhat. We got to live in reality, especially when we played against these players. And we know how we fared up against these players. So if we just going to come out and be critical about these players, make sure that you also say how that same player bust your ass. Okay. All right. Don't just be critical of the player because you have the platform. Also acknowledge that this player has been a great player his whole career that everybody wanted to play with. That's been somebody who everybody talks highly about in the game of basketball. Make sure he say these things too. But if I talk a lot about Ray Allen, right? and Ray Allen had a better career than me. He's a Hall of Famer. But I know I played well against him a lot in my career. But I would never get on TV and say Ray Allen's a cone. I would never get on TV and say Ray Allen is trash, right? Because that's not living the reality of being a basketball player who actually played the game. You know Chris Paul is not a cone. I know it's something personal there, but as everybody in the basketball world, you have to understand that when you're talking about people that you played against, give them a respect, especially if they served you up your whole career.
Now stack.
Hold on.
And that's hard to do now, big dog. You know that's hard to do because pride and ego's getting away. Who's the player then that you have beef with that you still can respect their ability, but you like real talk? I don't like them as a person, but they still know how to get buckets. Because you know that's hard to do. So put yourself in Pat Bev's shoes. Who's the player that you like, you know what? I don't really mess with him, but he still get buckets though.
Boom, boom, boom.
I don't have nobody like that.
That was the end of that. That's the end of that. I think Stack keep it 1,000.
Let me tell you why.
Please do.
Let me talk.
If you look at my NBA career, I've never been in a fight in an NBA game.
What was the Palace?
That wasn't an NBA game. That was in the stands. That was talking about fans.
Oh, you just showed up to an arena just to hang out. You were playing basketball.
He said not with a player.
I know it.
I feel it.
A little levity.
Not with a player. A fan can get it right now if I need to. They can get it right now still. But players. But I never got into it with the player self because one thing about it, everything on the court with me is all passion and basketball, right? And I give the same respect that I deserve with players. But I would never go on TV and try to belittle Ray Allen as a person or as a man, knowing he was a great to make myself look good because I know I'm on TV. You just can't do that. And that's when having the platform looks bad because I guarantee you, Pat Beverley, it's personal, but you know deep down inside, Chris Paul will wash you any day. He had a better career than you. And for you to feel that way saying he was a cone, you made it more personal than talking about basketball. And that kills your credibility.
Yeah, see, now, Stack, you in that conversation that I got a point and I got a problem with. You just said Pat Bear's on the network getting paid to talk. And they asked him a question, a specific question about CP3. We're not talking about CP3 as the greater large career resume Hall of Fame candidacy. We talk about in a series.
The crowd made it personal.
No, but we talk about listen to this. We talking about CP3 in a series where he got exposed defensively. They were looking for CP3 to go at CP3. We're talking about a series where he averaged in the last 5 games 9 points a game, held on to 15 points in all 5 games, 18 field goals made and 18 turnovers and a plus-minus of -57. So they go to Pat Bev and they say, tell us what this is.
What was John numbers? What was John numbers in Minnesota series?
Oh, no, but that's not the question. So here's the thing, and you know this from media. In media, when they are talking about you, we already given the fact that you must be somebody because we ain't getting up here wasting any of this precious airtime talking about a nobody. So Pat Bev is like, good, I ain't got to stop at that stop sign. Let me go through exactly what you talking about.
That's a good point.
And what you talking about is these 5 games where all of a sudden, who is this guy? Now, we know on a grander scale, and let's be real, Stack, I was at high a couple years of my career, and then I fell down. When I'm down here, when I'm falling off, if someone say, hey, Wiley falling off, I don't need them to cushion it by saying, but he once was, and he used to be, and he is going to be. Man, shut up. They asking you right now why he's sorry right now. And if Chris Paul or anybody can't acknowledge that in this moment, those are sorry production numbers, why are we mad at Pat Bev? Oh, Pat Bev got to be a better player to point out the truth, to point out the obvious, to point out the facts. This is why when I go anywhere, a homeless person, a bum, whatever you want to call them, someone downtrodden, when I talk to them, I'm actually listening because they got jewels, bro. People always want to judge the book by the cover, like, he ain't got nothing to say. And they be like, come on, man. I'll be like, dog, did you hear what he just said? I don't care about how it looks. I care about how it is. We going to get mad at PB for saying how it is? Just because he looked like a lesser player? Come on, Stacks.
Hey, Sal. Somebody who went broke ain't tell me how to save money. I'm sorry.
Why? It's a mistake that they made that you won't make if you listen to them. Ooh, no.
No,
Nope.
I'm good. I'm good.
Well, coming up.
I'm gonna listen to Acho.
Well, Acho just said last block, Acho said he might go broke. He cryptoed up. He might be in trouble coming up.